Hello, this is Martha Allen and Thai Town Talks. And today we have guests, Dr. Patricia Jones Blassman. She is a psychologist, a child psychologist with 30 years or more of experience. And we thank her for coming on today. She's our guest today. And you are tuned into Intellectual Radio, and we thank you for tuning in today. We have great information for you today, and we are being sponsored by Thai Town Bears book series. And we like for you to go on YouTube and share our book series for a limited time. We are on YouTube for audio visual for a limited time. So please feel free to go online and share the books with your children. Our guest will be talking today about teaching children how to survive the pandemic, COVID 19 in life as well as in school. And let's thank our guest. Thank you, Dr. Patricia Blassman. I'll let you introduce yourself again and tell us a little bit about you.
Well, thank you, Miss Allen. It's a pleasure to be on your show today. And I thank you for the invitation. Um, yes, we're going to talk about how to power your children through this pandemic, not just to survive it, but to thrive while they go through this experience. This is a once in a lifetime, we hope, experience. I think the last time there was a pandemic of this sort was the Spanish flu in 1918.
Yes.
So there is no one who's alive who's here to coach us through what to do during this experience.
Yes.
So, and in fact, as I was trying to find information about the 1918 pandemic and children and its impact on children, came to realize that there's very little out there from a child's perspective that says how they experienced that traumatic event.
Mm-hmm.
Like just like we have, for example, we have the Diary of Anne Frank, and she talks about her experience during the Holocaust. We don't have any kinds of records like that, diaries or um, art or any kinds of things that children have expressed about what this pandemic was like for them.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the ways that you can help your child actually thrive through this is to have them, if you have a child who's a writer or an
Mm-hmm.
artist, to have them draw
Mm-hmm.
or have them write about, to do a series as they
Mm-hmm.
go through this experience.
Mm-hmm.
What we know historically about pandemics, or what we experienced from the 1918 flu, was that Spanish flu, that this was something, an event that took place for over 2 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a while for this virus, this bug, to travel the globe, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what's happening now. It
Mm-hmm.
it will travel all over the globe, and you see that with outbreaks
Mm-hmm.
in different countries, and not just here in the United States.
True.
So we are just really in the first phases of what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think it's important that parents stay up to date on information. And I know you get information from all over the place. Like,
Yeah.
okay, where are we going to get, and
Bombarded.
and
Right.
bombarded and
Mm-hmm.
conflicting. And I get that. So I would truly, what I have done and what I would suggest other parents do is find an infectious disease expert that you know and trust. And my happened to me, my favorite one is Dr. Lane Rowling. But
Mm-hmm.
find one that you know and trust
Mm-hmm.
to kind of keep you informed about what's the latest, greatest, and and who will cut through the myths and cut through all the mess and give it to you straight.
Excuse me.
Mhm.
The in finding one they can trust, do you recommend they go through their child's physician?
Um, an infectious disease. You want to find an infectious disease specialist who is broadcasting regularly and giving updates about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So that person, I just happened to find Lane Rowland, not through my
Mhm.
child's, pediatrician or anything like that.
Mhm.
And I don't, I try not to, I try to find some, I was lucky. I'm gonna just be
Okay.
honest about
Okay.
it. I was lucky.
Okay.
And so, Dr. Lane Rowland is a brother.
Mhm.
He's incredibly experienced and talented in this arena. He has more
Well
experience
versed. Uh-huh.
than Fauci, for real.
Mm.
Oh
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
oh yeah.
Fauci is pretty good.
Fauci is pretty good,
And
but
if
not as
he's,
good as this
yeah,
brother.
if he's
Okay,
all
because
right, then he must
because
be pretty good.
because Lane has actually been out in the field
Mhm.
working with people who have in the infectious disease specialty areas, and he's come from Peru,
Okay.
and he has been in the jungles, and so
Mhm.
he has lots of clinical experience
Oh yeah.
as well as documented scholarly experience.
All right.
So he trained in the United States, biochemical
Oh,
warfare.
all
So
right.
he's got military training in biochemical weaponry,
All right.
and so he understands the nature. I mean, this is his thing. This is
Nature of disease
virus
and
and how
viruses
they
and how they
spread,
flow
and this is
and
what
what to
he's
do
been doing.
about them and how to take care of them until you can find a cure.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So this is his thing. This is, he's uniquely qualified at this moment in time to be
Hmm.
speaking. And so if you catch him on Facebook, Lane
Okay.
Rolling, Rollling.
All
So
right.
that's my resource. That's who I look to. And I think he's having something televised in the next couple of days.
Awesome.
So yeah, so if you
Awesome.
can catch him, and the way that I actually ran into him was a friend of mine told me about this, this infectious disease doctor who was
Hmm.
doing this Instagram television show
Hmm.
with his daughter,
Hmm.
and that it's one thing for experts to just talk and just be a talking head, but to have one talk to their daughter
Hmm.
about, and she lived in New York,
Hmm.
she lives in New York, so he's talking to her about what this is,
Oh
what
yeah.
the virus is, and how to protect herself. So this is a father talking to his daughter. So it's more than just
A
a talking
doctor,
head. Correct.
but he has some skin in the game. In
He's
other
got some
words.
skin in the game. Correct.
Hmm.
Correct. And he's very invested in making sure that people of black and brown communities have information, up
Hmm.
to date information, realistic information. He likes to be able to separate fact from fiction,
Oh,
fact from
great, great,
fiction,
great.
myth from reality.
Okay, that's what we need.
And his approach is very, I like his approach because he'll ask you, do you want the Mickey Mouse version or do you
Hmm.
want the Dr. Roland version?
All right, all right.
So you get a
And
choice.
well, give options. Yes, we do have a choice in life.
you know,
Yes.
he will respect that. Well, if you want the Mickey Mouse version, this is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want straight
Dr.
up,
Roland version.
which is straight up no chaser.
All
So
right.
that's how he rolls. Okay.
That's how he rolls. Okay.
Um,
He talks about how it affect kids in school or
he
parents
he
and
does.
kids
He
at
does.
home.
He does. He does. And the thing is that what I bring to this setting is, first of all, I've never been through a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no prior experience working with clients who have been through a pandemic. So I actually learned from him and from other people, other psychologists. There are only
Mm-hmm.
a few
Mm-hmm.
that have actually done work in the field around pandemics. So I've
Mm-hmm.
spent the last 6 months just being at their knee,
Mm-hmm.
really learning,
Mm-hmm.
and then sharing what I've learned to
Mm-hmm.
other people.
All right. That's what we need to do is share.
Okay,
Right.
so part of it is, recognizing that now I do have experience in trauma, as
Mm-hmm.
you know
Yes.
me for
Yes. Some
what
years
20
ago.
years ago,
Yes.
right? So I understand trauma and how trauma impacts
Affects
people,
children.
how trauma affects children. So I bring that experience, of course,
Mm-hmm.
to this, but the specific experience around pandemics, I had to learn. I had to get on the learning curve just like everybody else, and I didn't consider myself an expert right away.
Right.
Then there are times when you have to take, even if you have a PhD, there's a point in time when you say, okay, I got to go back
You
to
got to
school.
learn something again
Oh,
because
yeah, yeah, go.
this trauma, even though this is a pandemic, it's a form of trauma that kids are going through, or families are going through, and we all are going through for the most part for the first time.
For the first time.
So yes, it's a specific trauma, but it's also a type of trauma that, listen, once we understand a little bit about what we're going through, then I can help you cope with it as we understand more as time goes on. Yes.
So the first thing that I think that's really critically important is that people need to understand what it is that we're dealing with. If you've never read any accounts about a pandemic, if you've never historical accounts about a pandemic, then it would be good to do that as a parent, just so that you have you can wrap your head around what's happening. Because a lot of people think that, oh, this will be over within 6 months and we'll go back to where we were, and that's not that's not usually what happens.
Right.
Usually, when there's been a major plague or pandemic, that has usually changed the world in some way.
Oh yeah.
And so we have no idea what 2 years from now, what the world. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know what the world, how
it's going to unfold, and how it's going to
change,
what it is we got to live through, or children have to live through. But you have the technique and the experience of, as people get pressured, stressed, or go into emotional changes, you have the talent to teach them how to handle each step of these emotional changes.
Well, the first thing is making sure that people are aware of that this is what's going to happen. People can handle change if they know a change is coming. Isn't that a what's it, Sam Cooke?
Sam change is gonna come. Well, I think the change is already here. We got to cope with it, but more changes are coming. And like I said, you have the expertise of teaching them how to cope as the changes come, even if we don't have the answer, or you know how to answer to the pandemic itself
today. Right. So what we do know is for our children is that their world has been turned upside down, inside out. It's been upended, and so, and particularly for young children who are, they're for young children 3 to 7 who are just venturing out into the world, and like and becoming more independent. You're thinking 3, 4, 5, 6. They're going to, they're trying to go to school. They want to play with friends, but they're still sort of homebound, but not really. They're still trying to, go out into the world and feel like they can conquer the world. All of that has been upended. There's a certain freedoms that we can no longer assume, like sending them to the playground, or having them go to the playground, playing on the playground. All of their friends, sleepovers, their friends, who they get to hang out with. Their friends might have changed. The universe of children that they get to play with might have changed.
Yes, and dealing with the loss and the missing their friends that they became used to in school, and and in the neighborhood, they no longer can play with and congregate the way they used to.
Correct. So, and also their resources around where they're able to play may change, might have changed. For example, if or what's available to them might pose some limitations or advantages. For example, I live in a condo with no balcony, and I have been envious. Not covetous, but envious
of those who have balconies,
who have front and backyards.
Oh, even more so, yes.
Okay, is I like you could have out. So I have been talking to my friends who have front and backyards about the social distancing things we can do and still connect. Like backyard, get I'll chip in and get a movie screen and projector, and we can have movie night, and we can be socially distanced. I'll bring the popcorn, and,
right.
Things that are
because fun. Kids they can still go outside, but they can't be close to their friends.
Right. And that's going to be different.
And that's a great idea. As a matter of fact, in the book that we are highlighting today is Titan Bears Safe from COVID-19, colds, and flus.
Right.
And you're playing in the backyard or going to the park and playing with your toys and having a toy picnic is a way to just get the kids out. So you're right, just finding a way to get
get
out and still social distance.
but and to do it safely.
Yes,
That's
so
most. So and we recognize that for some families, you may have to limit who, the number of kids. You might have to limit even the kids. You might not be able to have, if Johnny has 10 friends, well, maybe we can only, really expand our network to two of those 10 friends who are your most important two of your 10. And we're going to limit it to that. Because, people have to think about, there are lots of things that go into consideration when you think about, okay, if I'm going to expand my child's network and bring them into my pandemic pod, so to speak, who can that be? I know for, just talking about myself, I have to be real. My husband has several comorbidities. So I can't take the risk. I mean, when I say comorbidities, I mean, we're talking that if he were to catch COVID, he could have a serious illness because he's got so many of them.
To fight because of other issues.
Right. And so we can't take as many risks. So that to me, so I've talked to my child about, well, who we can invite over. Like if I know that family is out and about and kind of not wearing masks or not really social, then I'm sorry, but that family, we might have to hold off on them for a minute.
Right.
Okay. But then I have other family, other people whose families are in a similar situation as mine. And they understand, the necessity for being strict about masks or being strict about hand sanitization and all that. And so that's a lot more comfortable to be able to say, okay, we can have that family over
because that family is practicing
the similar
the three
rules.
W's.
Correct.
Wear a mask, watch your distance, and wash your hands.
There you go. There you go. So that becomes critically important because they say, that most of the transmissions now are from gatherings in the home or gatherings, where
a group of more than 50 people gathering together, being too close together. We know it comes from gathering.
Right. So the three W's become extremely important. Yes. Extremely important. To reduce transmission and also to keep each other safe,
healthy and safe.
I'm trying to keep make sure my husband survives, okay, and thrives, but I want him to survive
this pandemic. Yes.
This pandemic.
Oh yes.
So so that's important.
Oh yeah.
The other thing is that, for those children who are school age, school is likely to change, and the way we do school is probably going to change.
Yes, it will.
I'm not sure exactly in what ways it's going to change, but people are reimagining school. But first, let me start off by let me back up a little bit and say, it's only been, last March, our children were, we went into lockdown, so to speak, or shelter in place, as it's called, and they didn't have a chance to say goodbye. They, it was very abrupt. I mean,
yes,
through no fault of their own, but the bottom line is that it was abrupt. It happened very quickly. Children did not get to have a chance to say goodbye, or even to be able to prepare for an extended time away from their friends. So even if they wanted to, I don't know if they wanted to go get phone numbers or continue contact with, they just didn't have the time to prepare for an ending.
Right. Right.
Okay. So it's more than just not being able to say goodbye. No time to prepare for an ending.
Right. Even some adults had a hard time.
Exactly.
And if adults are having a hard time, children are probably having more of a hard time.
Exactly.
All of a sudden you can't hug grandma anymore. You can't hug grandpa or even your mom or dad if they have it. That's another thing that Tytown Berry's book, Safe from COVID-19 Colds and Flus, talks about. If I can't hug my mom, if I can't hug my dad or grandma or grandpa, what do I do to show love? And the books tell them you can show love by drawing them a picture of a heart and showing it to them, even though you can't hug them. If you want to show hugs and kisses, you draw X's and O's on a piece of paper and you show this to the person you can't hug or you can't come within 6 feet to show them their love. And another thing it talks about, you can hug yourself and say, I love me and I love you. And this is another way to show love. And these are things that the Titan book, Safe from COVID-19, Colds and Flus, talks about. I love that. I love that in the Titan book series, in that particular one, because they talked about, because it's important to give children alternatives to the way that they would normally do things, so that they can feel like they can still show the love and affection that they have for their grandparents or their family members. And so it's important to be able to give them alternatives. Okay. Just like we came in today and we bumped elbows instead of, or whatever it is. Like there are things that we can still do, even though so the focus is less on what it is that we can't do, but now what are the things that we're focusing more on what it is that we can do. Yes, make it positive. Make it positive. Exactly. I can. Yeah. Exactly. Yes. So we went from family to school back to family. Let me go back to school because I want to talk a bit about um, the abrupt ending of that and the transition and not having the kind of closure that they needed. And so now, so I think that it's important that we recognize that and we understand that that's what happened and address that. And I think that we as a society we did a pretty good job of doing alternate graduations and alternate types of proms and to make up for it. But also drive by parades, drive by parades. And I hope people took lots of pictures about what we did, how what we did to celebrate, because our celebrations are going to change now in the way in under the way we under the during a pandemic. Yes. And that was one of the things I didn't see in my research either was how did people celebrate holidays during a pandemic? This is going to be interesting when Thanksgiving and Christmas rolls around. Well, unlike, yes, it will be, because everybody want to go to grandma's house or auntie house and go to that good home cooking and hug and, just have fun. But we do have we're a little bit more fortunate, should I say, because of the social media that has helped us a lot. That's true. Social media may help give parents uh, more information on how to deal with like children from preschool to 7, and then how children from 8 till 18, how would they deal with it? So that's a little different. Yeah. So I want to talk about. I got an interesting little story to tell about a friend of mine who she's actually my neighbor, and she was talking about how she has little ones as grandchildren. And we were talking about how important it is for our children to still experience joy and delight, even in the middle of a pandemic. Oh yes, we got to have those moments of positive energy and positive affection, and that. And she talked about how, she said, I was telling the story about how one grandmother does the tickles because she's a tickle monster, and that's how and that's what her grandchildren know her for tickle things. And she said she said that she actually does with her grandchildren is that she has this special hug, and they call it the Darty hug. I don't know what the Darty hug is. I haven't experienced it, but it's something that her children, that's unique to her family, for her family, and they talked about how they miss getting a Darty hug. And I said, okay, well, there's a way to do a Darty hug safely. And then we talked about how, that it's important that, everybody wash their hands, wear their mask. And then I told her about this solution. They Clean Smart. They use it's a disinfectant. It's very safe, very green, non-toxic. And they use it in the neonatal intensive care unit. That's how safe it is to clean the incubators and stuff like that. Okay. It's called Clean Smart. Now, if you can't find Clean Smart, it's actually the active ingredient is hypochlorous acid. Don't get turned off by the word acid because it's not that. It when you spray after you spray it, it just turns into saline and water. They use it in your eyeglasses, contact lens solution. And there are you can get a manufacturer's
bottle of that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can just go to
Brand. Uh-huh.
no a no name brand, but it's the same ingredient.
Okay.
But I said, okay, so what? And she loves the crafts. I said, okay, so this is what you're gonna do. So you're gonna have this. You're gonna have your hand washing ritual,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's gonna wear their special Dottie mask,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're gonna bring out your bottle of Dottie's Misty Magic,
Oh, okay.
and you're gonna spray them down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with the
With the
clean
solution.
smart with the
Uh-huh. Clean
solution,
smart
and then
solution.
you can hug away.
All
She
right.
was so delighted about that.
Yes.
But it's like because it's like I can go back and do this again in a way,
Yes,
and
that's
so
safe.
that's safe. And she said
Yes.
so she explained it to her, to the children's parents,
Mm-hmm.
and they were all for it. And then, of course, they wanted to know that about that disinfectant that
Oh
I told them
yes. Oh
about.
yes.
But
Anything to get them close to being normal.
and I said, now we can't have the Dottie hug last more than 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But and she said, no, it's just usually a couple of minutes, and they just get such a thrill out of it. I said, okay,
Mm-hmm.
then that's there's a way to do. You just have to know what's out there, know
Right.
what products out there that you can use,
Mm-hmm.
and and be creative, and you
Mm-hmm.
can still try to do some of the things that you used to do, but maybe in a different way.
I have a short story to share. There was when the pandemic first started. It was on Facebook or YouTube or something. There was this couple of grandparent couple, and they really missed their grandchildren.
Mhm.
So what they did was they got them a face mask. They got the plastic shield. They put a plastic bag over their clothes, and they got gloves
Mhm.
just so they can knock on the door of
Mm.
the grandchildren, and the grandchildren come to the door, and they can give them a hug.
Mhm. That's another way.
So people go to extremes to show love. So I appreciate you, and I'm sure our audience
Audience.
appreciate you sharing uh, those tips on what they can do to be able to hug or for a short period of time, but hug and come close to their family members and their grandchildren so they can show love.
Correct. Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And that and this children, particularly young children, respond to touch.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to touch and hold and hug is central to how for them to feel safe and connected. And so touch is important.
Uh, I'd like for you to address a little bit more for us on kids starting school and what the situation should look like or may look like or how should they cope with it. First, give a couple of minutes to the smaller children, preschool to 7, and then a little something for the older children on how to deal with this situation.
Okay. For the children or for the
For the
parents?
children,
Okay. Um
or both the children and the parents, because that sometimes they
okay.
have to work together.
Yeah, they do. And our society has to work together. Now,
Yes,
this
that's a
might
no whole new show.
this I don't want to get you in trouble. But Dr. Khan, who was Ali Khan, who was the former head of the CDC, said that we shouldn't even be thinking about sending kids back to school unless
Mhm.
our transmission rates are about 25. Daily transmission rate should be no more than 25 people per million.
Mhm.
Um, right now, so for the state of Illinois, for the city of Chicago, we're looking at 200 or less
Mhm.
should be, and we've been going, and we had gotten to that point
Mhm.
at one point,
Mhm.
but now we are.
Going back up.
It has gone up. It is now 200. I looked at it today. It's 273
Mm,
new cases every day,
that's a
and
lot.
the trend is going up, and it's dire when it gets to 400. When it gets to 400 new cases.
Now, is that just America or
No, we're
just a
talking
certain
about in
state?
Chicago.
Chicago,
We're talking about just
just
Chicago.
Chicago. That's still quite a bit.
It's a lot. So it should be under 200 in order
Mhm.
for us to more or less safely go to school. So being able to open schools up really has to do with transmission rates.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, we're just not there yet.
Yeah.
That's my honest opinion based on the science. Because what happens is when kids start going to school, it's not just about, well, are the kids going to be safe? It's about the movement of adults to bring them to school,
Mm-hmm.
the number of people who, the number of teachers and administrators and all of the adults that are now interacting as a
Mm-hmm.
result of this new activity that's starting.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that the rates are going to go up simply because we have now more adult activity going on because
Mm-hmm.
school started.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um,
You have more adults, and adults are more likely to have a greater opportunity to contract it than maybe kids, but that does not mean kids cannot attract it. So you're right. We do have to watch that.
And one of the things that we know is that children, we've learned is that, I shouldn't say we know, but what we've learned is that children, because at one point they thought young people under 20 didn't shed that much virus.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're finding that actually children between 10 and 20
Mm-hmm.
do shed as much virus as adults. And
Oh, okay.
and the way they found that out was that's the age when most kids start going to camps and overnight
Yes.
camps. And
Yes.
so the numbers started
Start to
going up.
increase. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we really don't know what's going to happen we really can't say what's going to happen for children who are younger than 10
Mm-hmm.
until they actually start going to school. And then we'll, it's like after the fact, find out, oh, yeah, guess what?
But how many would have caught it by then, you know? And they're so important about the cleaning process of the school and how often it's going to be cleaned, how much is that's going to cost the school per school,
Mhm.
and do you have dependable people to keep it in that clean condition?
Mhm.
It's a lot of things that we never had to deal with. We had to take in place.
Absolutely.
Although I did hear that if they do start, they will be delivering lunches to the classroom to help cut down uh, the movement of the children, and that a lot of the classes may have all their classes in one classroom to cut down on the movement of the children. So there have been some thought put in it.
There's been some thought put into it, and it's going to take a lot of thought. I mean, one of the things you may not know is that I help write, not necessarily write, but review biosafety security protocols and work
Awesome.
with institutions and organizations, and particularly schools, around what though that should look like.
Mm-hmm.
So, while yes, I think it's good that you're cutting down some of the movement of kids,
Mm-hmm.
from keeping them in pods, making
Mm-hmm.
sure that they're in the classroom, trying to say
Social
social
distance.
distance
Mm-hmm.
within the classroom, hopefully having smaller classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are ways to make schools safer. The issue for me becomes, are we as a society willing to invest in the infrastructure upgrades that will be necessary
Mm-hmm.
to make schools safer?
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things that's an issue is the air purification and ventilation systems.
Yes.
And we know that some schools need serious upgrades.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
can kind of imagine where those schools are, right?
Yes. And I have been in classrooms that had no windows,
Okay, right.
you know.
So, and even though children might be in staggered classrooms and they might be in their pods and they're keeping them separated, usually though, what happens though, everybody uses the same bathrooms.
Oh, yeah.
And that becomes a vector for illness and disease. And one of the things that Dr. Rowling talked about and alerted me to, which I had no idea about, was that a lot of viruses
Mm-hmm.
are airborne and is carried through fecal transmission.
Oh, yeah. You got to be careful with that.
Most schools in most public schools don't have toilet lids on their toilets,
Yes. And that's an expense.
and that's an expense.
Yes.
So are we okay?
Okay. Great, great, great. We want to thank Dr. Patricia Jones Blassman, for sharing all of that great information. And I hope that you all have gotten something out of Thai Town Talks today to help you, your child, or your family. And we would like for you to continue to uh, Tune into IntellectualRadio.com to hear Thai Town Talks so we can share information that may help you, your family, your friends, or your school. We also like to thank Thai Town Bears book series for bringing us the Thai Town Bear books that will help our children. Thai Town Bear Daycare Adventure, Thai Town Bears Safe from Strangers, Thai Town Bears Safe from COVID-19, colds and flus, Thai Town Bears Good Touches and Bad Touches, and more. You may be able to find these books on YouTube on audio for a limited time only. Please look up Thai Town Bear books. Also on Facebook, on the Thai Town Teaching Bears, and on YouTube and Amazon. You may be able to purchase these books on Amazon. And once again, I'd like to thank the Thai Town family, Thai Town troopers, which are our small children who love to learn. That's what a Thai Town trooper is. We'd like to thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to sharing great information with you in the future. Thank you.